If you're sitting in the exam hall to appear for the TEF or TCF Canada exam and you find yourself suddenly panicking on, oh my god, how am I going to get through the exam? Do I even know anything? And things like that. I know exactly that feeling, having been there a couple of times myself. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to overcome that and how do you get over the stressors that you face during the exam. And if you are about to give the exam soon or in a couple of months, believe me, this video is going to be super helpful for you. So stay tuned till the very end. Salut, I am Akshara and I cleared the TEF Canada exam from scratch in 13 months, and I have created this channel to talk all about the French language, TEF TCF Canada exam and the Canadian immigration through French. Before we get started with this video, make sure that you're subscribed to my channel and have the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Also, if you're looking for any specific guidance regarding French, you can schedule a session with me. I will leave the link in the description below. And with that, let's get right into the video. Alright, so let's first start with the listening section. A lot of people find this part super stressful because it really is stressful because of the fact that the audio is, once it starts playing, there's no pausing or rewinding, and that can get really scary. So, how do you stay calm and stay focused? First thing is focus on the keywords and not on every single detail. It's very easy to panic when you don't understand every single word, and that really does happen to everybody, especially during an exam. But here's the secret: you don't need to understand every single word. Instead of trying to catch every word, focus on more like the key information. Things like numbers, dates, names, specific actions, or anything like that. For example, if you're listening to a conversation about booking a hotel, pay close attention to probably the price, the location, and anything specific that is being mentioned. This will help you understand most of the questions without losing getting lost on the unnecessary details. Also, another thing is, read the question, because you will be getting a few seconds before the audio is being played. If you get yourself to read the question, and this can only be done through practice beforehand. If you are able to read those questions before the audio is being played, at least you get a direction of what the first question is going to look like, or what kind of information should you focus on. So that will really help you. Next thing is, don't dwell on missed information. I know this is very easy, it's easier said than done. Sometimes you miss like a word, a phrase, and that's okay. But what happens is, if you get thrown off because of that, your entire audio is going to go by without you realizing. And if you miss something, just take a deep breath, leave it at it, and move on, right? There's no point in just dwelling on, oh my god, I missed that, I don't know, and then you spiral, and then it is not going to go good. So rather on, if you just left something, just leave that as is and go forward. Try to listen to some information that you are able to get further on, so that carrying like even if you are getting some information, you can put things together. Everything that matters here is context. Yes, there are going to be specific information for sure, but if you are, more often than not, if you're able to get like the context, then what happens is you can stitch the story together. Like for example, during my exam, I used to miss like couple of details, and it used to be very hard for me to like let go of it. But with practice, what I started doing is, it's okay if I didn't catch something. The goal is to sort of focus on what is next to come, so that even if you're able to pick some information, trust me, you can stitch a story around it and be able to answer the question, because these are not like highly intellectual questions. More often than not, actually, it's really not any intellectual question. So you can also sometimes use like your own common sense and try to understand what the sentence is, and answer accordingly. So that's one thing I would say, that if you miss some information, just let that be. That's about it. Just move on. And the best way to practice for listening would be, practicing with different accents and different podcasts, audios, radio channels, YouTube, everything basically that involves more like a real time action. Like, for example, France Inter or like RFI for news in French is a really good resource because a lot of questions or like a lot of audio excerpts are taken from RFI or very similar tone and conversation and topics and things like that. So you will start getting accustomed to it, and also you will also have like questions below those audios, so you get that practice of doing it in like the most stressful situation possible. Now, let's talk about the reading section. Yes, I do know for a lot of people this might feel a little less stressful because you're not under immediate pressure, especially with respect to time like listening. But it doesn't mean that it's stress free, especially after the new format has been changed and it's been enforced. Reading has gotten a little more complex. Believe me, it is a lot longer, and you have to manage your time. You could be really good at your language, but if you're not able to manage your time, you are going to miss out on a lot of questions in the reading section because the length of passages are pretty long. I don't mean to scare you, but it is good to be, prepared right from the beginning rather than just panicking during the exam. So, first tip I would say here is always read the question first before reading the passage, because you need to understand what exactly is it that they are looking for. There's going to be a lot of information in the passage. You cannot try to understand or crack every single thing. Rather, look at the question first and try to see what angle are they looking at, or what is that particular information that that they're asking, so that when you go and read the passage, you already get the answer right there, and you're also going to save on a lot of time rather than reading the whole passage and then coming here and reading questions and then looking and doing the match the following. So that all that is going to take up more of your time. Next step is always skim. Don't read every word. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of information in one passage, and these passages, oh my god, they're going to be so long. So, time management is super crucial in the reading section. You don't have to like read every single word in every single sentence. Skim through the text first, try to get like a general idea of what the context is, then go back to the question and see what exactly they're looking for, and then you'll be able to see, okay, in second paragraph they're talking about this, and then go and try to understand that information and try to crack it more on the relevancy of the question. Like, for example, um, you might focus on scanning for numbers, dates, names, those kind of information. If you read the question, you'll get an understanding if there's anything specific, or any such information also. And another thing is, there are different ways, there are different strategies on how people like to go about, because you do have the luxury of switching questions in the reading section. If you're not able to crack a particular question, I would say skip, leave that, because there will be a list where you can see what are the questions you have answered and what are the ones that you have not. Even if not that, you get like a piece of paper, you can write down all the numbers that you feel you're doubtful, and you can always come back to it. That's what I always did, because I did not want to lose out on time. My goal is to answer the most number of questions effectively, and then brood over the questions that are a little hard to figure out. So I would like write down on a piece of paper and then come back to that question towards the end, maybe after I've answered all of it. So I would say that's one of the strategy that you can use. Then a lot of people go from backwards, take things head on first and then try to get that done and then go on to the easier things. Of course, it's all different strategies, but for me personally, I think if you're able to get by your first 20 questions, which are going to be fairly easy, then a major chunk of it, you feel good. It's a feel good factor that, okay, I've gotten so many things and I know these probably are like right. So you feel that sigh of relief, and then you can concentrate on the ones that are a little more tricky. But of course, you can see what works for you best. If you are looking at doing the first 20 questions, I suggest that you have 60 minutes entirely. I suggest you do the first 15 to 20 questions in the first 20 minutes, because the next 20 set of questions are going to be a little longer and do take more time. So initially be really fast, and then you can, naturally your pace is going to come down. So I will tell again and again for reading section is that it's very easy to get like caught up, and you might lose sight of time. There are so many people who come and tell me that I could have done reading a lot better, but I ran out of time. And that's how it is. It's an exam at the end of the day, so don't let like one question eat up your time, and then you lose a lot of confidence. So just skip and then come back to it later. All right, now let's talk about the writing section. So, writing section, I think major trick here I would say is always organize your thoughts first before going on to the writing aspect. Always organize. Okay, even before that, um read the question and first try to structure like a stitch a story in your mind, and then start like organizing. First make a story, because what happens is a lot of people try to make one story, and then midway they start and lose sight of whatever they're doing and go elsewhere, and that's only going to take up your time, and there won't be a flow of your writing. So it can feel really daunted. So what I would say is like the structure is really important. So break the question down. The first thing is break the question down. So before you start writing, take like a moment, read the question and what exactly are they asking for. Read the entire question properly. Like there will be a couple of parts in it, so read every part, and try to understand, okay, are they looking for your opinion or description, narrative? There's so many things to it, right? So once you're able to understand what is expected, you can start organizing your thoughts. What I did and what probably could also work out for you was like I used to write down like outlines, maybe sometimes in English, in French. Like during your practice, it's good if you start writing down in French, so that even during your exam you're able to produce that. But nevertheless, even English is okay, so that you can use it to like maybe translate it. It's not a bad thing. A lot of people say, oh, you should not translate, but trust me, if you're learning a language from scratch, it's bound to happen, and it might as well use that for your advantage. So write an outline. What are your main points? How will you support them, and things like that. And it shouldn't really be long. It's just like one liners maybe, or like couple of words also work. So this is just to help you make sure that you're not going off topic. If there's one particular word, like for example one of the argument is going to be about pollution, then make sure that you're writing only about pollution and you're not going off elsewhere about something else. So having an outline really helps, and that also helps with the second part of it, which is keeping it simple. When you're stressed, right, what happens is we tend to overcomplicate things. We might try to use like really advanced vocabulary or complex sentence structures and all of that. Yes, probably you do need to do that at some level, but remember that clarity is very important. And this is something that I strongly believe in, is that rather than writing really complex sentences, I would say minimize the errors. Okay, so basically what I mean to say is don't make really basic errors. Minimize as much as errors possible, rather than going to and trying to write like super complex sentences or like vocabulary and things like that. If you are able to do that, you're already almost there, because all they look for is lesser errors. Like very basic errors are really, you can lose a lot of points. So make sure you're not doing that, and stick to what you know. It's better to write like a simple grammatical sound and correct sentence, rather than making a lot of mistakes and making it very complex. So if you have an outline and if you're sticking to like really basic things, of course you need to use a lot of like for example, people think that using like a subjunctive in every sentence, or like trying to fit things in where it doesn't actually belong, might give you more marks. But that's, in my understanding, I don't think that's how it works. It's rather about how you are able to use it appropriately, but also you're like making sense of what you're writing rather than just trying to stuff complex things in. So it should seem a lot more natural. So if you're able to do these things, you will be saving like a lot of time on your train of thought, and that way you will be able to write like a better quality content. And just writing is not going to help. The most important thing is writing in writing is reviewing your work. Make sure that you are keeping some time aside for reviewing, because trust me, even when we are writing like a SMS, we do end up making like smallest of the mistakes in like typing. So imagine what is the scenario in the exam. A lot of times you end up making like really basic mistakes while writing, which when you come back and correct, you will be able to correct. And I really feel that's 50% of your job in the writing section. If you come back and read, you will find so many of the basic mistakes, accents, and so many spelling mistakes and things like that, which while you are writing you have that flow of thought, so you don't realize, but when you come back and read, you will be able to see that okay, these are the things that you can correct and all of that. So I would say keep time for first review and second review. You can structure your way of preparation this way, because that's where really everything lies in. So just correct it, and make sure that you're able to like have like a whole organized essay with like lesser errors, and that's something really for sure is going to get you good marks. And now, finally, the speaking section. This is where the stress can really show up, because it's going to be in front of a real person, right? Whether it's in the form of like nervousness, like a dry throat, or stumbling, and things like that. But don't worry, of course, there are ways to, reduce that nervousness. First thing is take a deep breath and slow down. A lot of people think that you have to speak really fast or something on those lines. That's not necessary. You can talk at your own pace. Of course, not like you speak very, very slow, but you don't have to focus on speaking like faster than faster than the speed of your brain being able to make sentences. So take your time, take a deep breath before starting off. Just think the first sentence, because where you start and how you start makes everything for your own self. Because if it goes bad, then you spiral in your whole conversation. But if you're able to go with a good start, then you're able to take your conversation strong and confidently. So make sure that your first sentence is going to be really good sounding, confident, in your section A, because that's the first thing that's going to come off. So just take a moment, clear your thoughts, just think about that first question, and then go ahead, and it will take its own course, right? And the next thing is, make sure that you're using connectors to have like a whole structure for your responses, because that's very important, and that's something that you're marked on. And also that is something that makes the whole conversation very clear and organized. So you can use simple connectors like double, ensuite, enfin, and things like that. All these things are something that comes with practice, with a lot of practice, because speaking is just about practice. They will really help you, give you the flow, and even if you're like feeling nervous. And I would say have some filler words which you can prepare beforehand and keep, which will help you to sort of try to make filler. French people use that a lot as well, so you don't have to worry much about that. That will also buy you some time. And another thing which I used, but of course not very frequently, is that if I needed a little more time to think about something, I used to be like, pardon, or something along those lines, to just buy time. But of course, don't do it too often, then you will not get good scores, right? That can take off some scores. And finally, the thing is, don't worry a lot about mistakes. It's very natural to make like a few mistakes when you're speaking under pressure, or even when you're speaking normally. Like, I even did mumble or like fumble in this particular video itself in English. So, if you're talking about French, that's like a whole other story. So, you don't have to worry. It's an exam, everybody understands, but just don't make, but make sure that but make sure that it is something that doesn't throw you off. If you remember or if you identify that you made a mistake, then go back and say pardo and correct it. That is really good, because that way they're able to understand, okay, you were able to identify and you corrected it immediately. But you can just move on from there. They everybody understands that you're nervous, and they won't like really penalize for like really small errors. Of course, they have to not be really basic. They can understand how much of the language we know and how much we don't, and things like that. So if you made like a really small mistake, that's okay, because we all do that even in like normal conversations. So rather focus on communicating your message clearly. You don't have to worry so much about perfection. We all seem, or in our head we want perfection, but trust me, just record yourself and see. If you're learning French recently, we all sound very I don't know what's the word, but not perfect. So it's okay. It's all like a work in progress, so you don't have to worry so much about that. Just look for like good vocabulary and communication and getting your point across, and I think you're good with that. So I think this was all about, how do you deal with every single section. One other thing which I would say from my personal experience is that treat every single section very independently. It's very easy to say this, I know, but consciously make sure that you are not letting your first section, like let's say for example, if you're starting with reading, don't let your reading section, the way that it went, affect your listening section, and then carry that forward to writing section. It's very hard, I know, but please focus on just that particular section itself. I would always like, if I'm doing the writing section, I would brood over what I left in listening section and things like that. And that just wastes your time. You are not even doing something efficiently. So, and also another thing is you don't realize how you have done. Like, for example, there was this exam where I gave where I was really struggling to write writing section well, because I felt like I had done my listening section really badly. That was my previous exam, previous section. So I spent like the whole time being harsh on myself that I did not do the listening section well. But when I got my exam result, it turned out that I had done my listening section really well. So we don't really we cannot evaluate how something went, because at that time, if our emotions are heightened and we're nervous and things like that, so you would have done a lot better than what you think you did. So just leave that, just clear your mind, because you do sometimes get like a few minutes break between each section. Just clear that tab completely and focus on that very section at that moment, and I'm sure you would be good to go. And you would have practiced so much and given put in so much effort. I'm sure you would do it well. It's just that you need to learn how to calm your nerves and not get affected by things that are happening there. And all of that is only possible with a lot of effort and practice, which goes in the backhand, right? So that's pretty much all about this. I think it was pretty long video if you ask me, but I hope this was really helpful for you if you guys are going to give the exam anytime soon, so that you can use these strategies to help you manage stress on the day of the exam and also give the best in each of the section that you are going to appear for. That's pretty much it for this video. If you're looking for any specific guidance, or if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. I will leave the link in the description below, and you can schedule a session according to your availability and we'll get in touch. And if you found these tips helpful, don't forget to subscribe and also leave a comment on what is something that works for you best, so it could also help someone else out. And that's pretty much it. Keep learning. Good luck on your friend journey. I will see you in the next one. Abhiyanto.